Hello, everybody. It's Mike Levin on Tuesday, June 18th, 2019. And when last you joined me, I thought I was installing the Windows Subsystem for Linux version 2 via the latest Windows stable release from May, which I forced my system to upgrade to, version 1903. I was mistaken. It's only available on the Windows Insider program. So consider this the next in the continuing series of how to get there. For anyone who's following this world shift that's going on of Microsoft starting to ship Windows with Linux and wants to get a jump on it, follow along. I usually don't like being on the bleeding edge, but the gain here is just too large. I've been stymied in my career for a couple of months because of the subtle differences between my preferred work platform, which is the wonderful Microsoft Surface Book 2. I can't say enough good things about it. It's a wonderful piece of hardware, from the innovative portfolio design down to the touchscreen stylus. Just blows any Mac I've ever been on out of the water. And the only thing left is to make it a Unix/Linux system. I want to say POSIX, but Microsoft chose Debian Linux as their version, so it's not POSIX, but it's good enough. We can say Nix. Anyway, the next step then is to join the Windows Insider program. So I, of course, Googled on how to do it. I logged in at the page. I went into Windows Setup, and then went into Windows Update, and then went into the Insider program link that's about there. And it told me it had one problem to fix to get going, and I figured that's where I'd start this video, because I like to show you the interesting stuff that you'll be encountering. As many of my followers know, I don't edit. I just shoot from the hip, and I think there's value in that. So I've got to raise my diagnostic settings to the next level. Let's see what that does. Hopefully I don't make you guys wait too long on this stuff. I'll try and fill the dead air with interesting stuff to talk about. My real reason to do this, okay, yeah, we want to be on the fast branch. That's good. Oh yeah, this is for later. Stop getting the preview builds. I'm going to want to do that after this goes mainstream, because leading edge fine, bleeding edge not so fine. But we're going to have to go and do the next steps. The thing that misled me was when you go into the PowerShell in administrative elevated privileges, you have to turn on the virtual machine subsystem for Windows, something that is in the instructions here. And I had done that before on the last stable release, and it did work. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm not going to have to restart my system because I had already done this step, and this worked on the prior on the May release, and I thought that was going to be enough, because after I did the let's see what that version, well, I'll let this show for a minute, but after I did that 19 something, I'll show you the exact version numbers, the parameters that WSL.exe from the System32 directory supported changed. I was able to do some arguments to the WSL command that I wasn't before, and I was like, oh great, I must be on version 2. I didn't notice any performance differences. The Chromium browser didn't run in a more compatible mode without its sandbox warnings. So I got suspicious, and then the final thing that clued me in that something was wrong was on my video. I'm getting almost as many thumbs downs as thumbs up. So I went investigating, and I'm like, okay, something's wrong. And then I found that you had to be on the Insider release. And even though I don't like doing that kind of stuff, I bit the bullet. This, by the way, even though it might not look like it, is PowerShell. I like these big fonts. I like a black background, make it feel just like a make it feel just like a bash shell. So the next steps after that's done. Interesting. So maybe there's no download necessary, or maybe it's already done the download. But at any rate, WSL set version, Ubuntu is going to be my version with a 2 after it. I had thought I had done this before, but I'm sure I got the equivalent of typing a bad argument. So you can do, first of all, you can just do WSL, and it'll bring you into the equivalent of a Unix bash, and then you have the ls commands and such. But that's not what I want. I want to be in the PowerShell to do this next step. WSL, double check that, set version Ubuntu 2. Set version Ubuntu 2. So I don't have something yet because that is the same as doing WSL help. It didn't really set that version, although I do have some of those commands like listing which systems I have that I didn't have that ability before. You can see it's set to Ubuntu, and that's the default. So I go back here, and I guess I click that. It is set to fast, that's correct. So am I not on it? Do I have to do an update? So perhaps this video, let's see, I go back to update. This is my first time on the Insider program. So this is me figuring out how to get the Insider release, the fast branch, which is what I have currently selected. So even though I was able to go in here, I was able to set up a mode, I don't think I actually have it on my machine. So this video might be broken into 2 parts, because at some point it's going to prompt me to download something, and then a restart almost guaranteed, and then probably a long wait, the blue screen while it updates. And before it gets to that reboot, I'll get my screen capture software to finish up and save out the file, and then I'll probably make the subject of this joining the Windows Insider program and getting the fast branch. And I will try and fill this dead time with interesting talk. It seemingly is doing something, but I am going to go back to my web page and see if there's anything I'm missing in the documentation. This is the announcement that came out on June 12th. It's June 18th, so it's just a little under a week later. Hopefully I'm one of the first people sort of pioneering this on YouTube. I saw one other that had some music video behind it. It was about the opposite of my style video as it can get. So it's telling what you can do. My problem is that I haven't really been on the Insider program before or recently. I don't know. Maybe I had in the past. I'm 48 years old, and I've been on Windows in some version or another since 3.1 back in the 90s. I was an Amiga person, and Windows was the enemy, and it was hard to believe, it is hard to believe that Microsoft is my preferred platform now for hardware, and once this works, start software as well. So here we go, getting things ready. 100%. Pending install. So I suppose I do have an install to do. There's a firmware install, it's saying. So the Windows 10 Insider preview, it says 100%. Now there's also a firmware install, which I won't make you suffer through. I wonder if this is now upgraded. Let's take a look. Not yet. I don't think this happens without one of those big upgrades. Getting things ready 100%. Thank you, Microsoft, for such an informative screen. Well, I do believe I may need to do a reboot, in which case I'll probably break this up into, getting things ready 70%. That was not, in fact, entirely true. There's almost no way this doesn't end in a prompt to restart and bringing up one of those blue Windows update screens. So once again, I'll fill this dead air with interesting stuff. So here's my journal. You can see I broke it down to really just the 3 steps. Joining the Insider program, I did that just before starting the video. I guess I'm in the midst of that, and this is the command I'm trying to type into PowerShell. It should just be those 3 simple things. The upgrade is going on here. It's still at 70%, but let me give you sort of a before and after. This, as you know, is PowerShell. But what I really like to use is the Windows terminal. Not the Windows terminal. It is the, well, it's the Ubuntu bash shell. I like using Unix with the ls commands and, you know, all the standard computer science-y way of controlling computers so that you can write stuff that you can move on to headless Unix servers that are pretty easy to get, or Linux servers that are pretty easy to get out in the cloud to do automation, or a $5 local Raspberry Pi. There's lots and lots of options. Basically, when you know how to do things in Linux/Unix, let's call it Nix, you know the plumbing of tech. Writing's on the wall. There's a major world change going on, and Microsoft is shipping Linux with Windows. Let me repeat that. It's worth repeating. Microsoft is shipping Linux with Windows. Okay, so my real thing that I'm trying to do is run Chrome or the Chromium browser as compatibly as I can, so it's no different than running it on a generic Linux system. I have done quite a bit of work to get graphics capabilities on a Windows system. Anyone familiar with Xterm or X Windows might recognize this as one of those silly little graphical things that lets you test that you really have X installed. It's not very elegant, but it works. And this is what also allows me to do this little trick. It's in user local it's the Chromium browser. Oh, user local bin. cd/user cd/local ls cd bin clear Chromium browser. So as you'll see, it gives me warnings about sandbox and user ID, namespaces and stuff. So what we do today to solve that is no sandbox. And miraculously, you will get a Linux GNOME version of Chromium popping up. But there's all kinds of issues having to do with this not really being a genuine version, and see, it sort of disappeared, core dumped. Just problems. So that's what we're trying to get rid of by being on a better, hey, getting things ready 100%. Hopefully it'll prompt me for a restart pretty soon, and we'll wrap this video up. So you see what was going wrong, and what was going wrong over there with the Chromium browser is what has been sort of stymieing me in my very career for a couple of months, because there's the download. Okay, my goal is to mock things up in Jupyter Notebook in the web browser, where things are most easy because you're in a REPL environment, read, evaluate, print loop that lets you examine the contents of variables. Let me just show you. This is my web browser screen. This is my Jupyter Notebook icon, and you'll see how wonderful of a development environment Jupyter Notebook is for Python type stuff. And then you want to just lift up that code, so long as you take into account the multi-platform nuances, or not even multi-platform, as long as you take into account automation nuances, the code that you write in Jupyter Notebook, where the writing is easy and it's a great learning environment, can and should be able to be lifted up and dropped into a headless Linux server as your automated tasks. So you feel things out in Jupyter Notebook, and then you move them over to automation there. Hopefully it's not going to take too long for this to occur with that download occurring. I don't think it should. Oops. There, Jupyter Notebook usually doesn't take that long to start. Go into my GitHub directory, and I'll just do a new Python 3 and give you a little hello world in Python to let you understand why this is so nice. So the idea is I'm going to be doing this exact same thing, but it's going to be the Linux version of Chromium. It's going to be Anaconda and Jupyter Notebook running under the Linux version of Chromium browser, so that I can get all the paths and stuff right. So, I don't know, in Python, we'll do something like the hello world program. Print hello world, and there you have it. That's hello world in Python for anyone getting started in Python. But now let's say we set a variable equal to hello world, and we can print that, and it's the same thing. Now the beautiful thing is that variable A is just hanging around there ready to be inspected, and you can do things like, you know, stepping through it. For letter in A, print letter, and it just goes through it like a sequence. Does one print statement for each letter in hello world, and this is just a great environment to sort of experiment and get a program correct for the first time. Once you get it correct, you sort of lump it together into one big cell here, and then you just copy it all, and then you paste it over into Vim, which is my preferred text editing environment. So I would do something like go back to my GitHub directory, vim foo.py, and then I would just paste it in there from here. Let's do this one just to have some text. Save, quit, and then Python. Well, let me clear all that garbage out. Python foo.py, and now you have a Python program in command line instead of Jupyter Notebook, and then you can drop it into a scheduler. So that's pretty much what I do. That's my field. That's my career. I write special custom scripts, and then I automate them. And it always breaks into those two phases of writing it in an experimental environment where you can do a lot of things and feel things out, and then putting it where it's stable and 24/7 reliable in a very generic Linux scheduler environment. So I won't make you wait for this, but I do apologize to anyone who watched my initial video, which is getting really pumped up to a lot of views, and I've got to fix this misunderstanding quick. I thought things changed because under PowerShell, I was able to WSL list and see my different distributions, which I only have one of, which I wasn't able to do before. So I was pretty sure the WSL.exe in my System32 file had gotten updated and changed, and I even did the upgrade, and it took like an hour for it to upgrade my Ubuntu instance to what I believe is the file system for the new Windows Linux subsystem. Subsystem for Linux, WSL. Why they didn't go with WLS, I don't know. But I was wrong. So it was a transitional upgrade on the stable release 1903, but getting the actual WSL2 isn't really possible without being on the fast branch of the Windows Insider release, which requires joining the Insider program and doing the process I'm doing right now. So this is kind of needlessly extending the video. I'll wrap it up here and hopefully get to the next video real soon, where you'll see me actually install WSL2 and hopefully get Chromium browser running in fully compatible Linux mode. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe.